I don't have all the answers. I don't know. It's okay to fail. Just don't do it again. I'm struggling here. A lot of people just don't have that because they're like, hey, look, I have to have all the answers. If I don't have all the answers, people won't think I'm in charge. That's not the case. If you're the best player on the team, you don't have to go around telling everybody you're the best player on the team. Everyone will know. So I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I'm not the best. I've struggled, but you got to be coachable. You got to be humble. You got to be hungry. And by doing those things, that's the kind of person I want on my team, right? I don't want that guy or that gal that's like, oh, I got it all. I know it. Okay, so if you tell me you got it all, if you know it all, you're done learning. You're done growing. And I don't want that kind of person on my team. I don't.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. EQ Gangsters, so excited for you to watch this episode or listen to this episode. This is with a brigade commander, an Army brigade commander from the 82nd Airborne Division, Full Bird Colonel Ricky Taylor. He is, so for the civilians that are non-military, don't have any kind of military background, he has led an organization for the past 2 years of 4,500 men and women that are serving our country in the United States Army. That's a very large organization. That's the CEO of a 4,500 person organization company. It's a very, very huge responsibility. And he's been doing it the past 2 years and has been incredibly successful in his 26 year military career. So excited for you to listen to his insights. I did the interview with my other company that I've partnered with my classmate, West Point classmate, Eric Lopez, which if you've stuck with me for a long time, he's also a great interview to listen to, Colonel Eric Lopez, who now runs the company Arrowhead Leadership Consulting. So we do a monthly lunch and learn with various guest speakers, various topics, that kind of thing, under the umbrella of Arrowhead Leadership. So for my EQ Gangster podcast YouTube audiences, you will probably be able to get access. I'll probably be making those available to you all as well, so that you all can kind of hear what we're doing on the Arrowhead side of the house also and get the benefit of that as well. So excited for you to check this out. Highly recommend taking notes. Colonel Ricky Taylor on emotional intelligent leadership, and pay attention to one of the most important qualities that he determines that he thinks reflects a high quality leader. We also talk about how to prevent becoming a toxic leader. Phenomenal interview. So excited for you to check it out. Colonel Ricky Taylor. All right. What's up, everybody? It's great to see you all. My name is Noble. I would love it if you guys would turn your cameras on for me. Unless you're driving, everyone's a safety officer, right? So if you're driving, no need to put the camera on. But if you are not driving, please bust out your camera so I can see the pearly whites. Even all you hardcore military dudes, it's still authorized. I think you guys are still authorized to smile every now and then. So y'all pearly whites, y'all, come on, man. Nice. LK, is that LK? Good to see you.
Hello, Noble.
Lady, it's been too long. Too
long, my friend. Too long.
Okay.
So great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So do this. If you guys could all do me a favor, put in the chat log 2 things for me. Like a profession, unless you're secret squirrel, right? Because some of you guys are secret squirrels, so you can just put like, whatever secret squirrel code alias, right? Or put like what you do for a living, what your position or role or title, and then also where you are calling in from. So if you could put in your position, job position, what you do for a living, and where you're calling in from. Generally, again, I know we may have some secret squirrels on here. Generally, that would be awesome to kind of see who we have on the call right now. That would be great. Okay, man, we got some folks here, y'all. I'm stoked. This is awesome. All right, let's check this out. Let me bust out the old chat log. Okay, we got Lieutenant Colonel Seth Allen, Yukon Army ROTC. Nice. Clark. Oh, yeah. Come on, Clark. What's up? That's awesome. Over at Bragg, let's see, Big Underwood. Tim Underwood. What's up, my man? Awesome. Let's see, who else? We've got, okay, Master Sergeant Daniel Mabe. Okay, senior military. Southern Illinois. Oh, snap. I'm from Illinois, near Champaign-Urbana. What a small world. That's awesome. We got Master Sergeant Jason Rosales, Truman State University, Armor ROTC, Northeastern University, Boston, Mass. Oh, snap. Okay, Elke. Okay, awesome. We got Captain Big David Borrero. Okay. Awesome. VCU grad student, Gregory Carranza, MS3 with Chicago State. Wow. We got a lot of, college folk. That's great. Robert Points, Thomas Plant, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Plant. Okay, awesome. ROTC guy. Luke, cadet Luke. I was a cadet a long time ago, man. We got Big Ricky Taylor on snap. Okay, from the Deuce. Awesome, y'all. Okay, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked, y'all, to do this interview here with Colonel Ricky Taylor. Super excited, y'all. He's a super guy. He is the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, and I met him back in October with my college classmate Eric Lopez. A lot of you guys probably know Colonel retired Eric Lopez, and they served together. And so Eric introduced me to Ricky, and just an incredible dude. And I'm super stoked to hear some of his insights. So we're going to be talking about kind of some questions I've got for him on emotional intelligent leadership, toxic leadership, culture, healthy culture, unhealthy cultures, that kind of thing from a fast tracker. Ricky, my only request, dude, is don't forget about us, bro, when you become a GO, right? And don't get your head too big, right? As a big cheese, you know what I'm saying? So, okay. And then Rachel, was that Guaranteed Electric? Is that Guaranteed Electric rep on it? What's up, Rachel? Great to see you. Brittany, Brock. Okay, awesome. Again, if I can see the pearly whites, that would be awesome, because I'm a pearly whites guy. It's way cooler to see kind of the people interaction and stuff on here. That'd be super dope as Ricky gives us skinny and stuff. Okay, also, as Ricky's talking, would love to have you guys like comment in the chat log either questions or insights that Ricky shares that were impactful. Please grab those, stick those in the chat log. That would also be helpful. Now, I know, Ricky, you gotta make a disclaimer here for us before we jump into some skinny. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Ricky Taylor.
Thanks, Noble. I appreciate you having me on here this afternoon, and to Eric Lopez. I appreciate you both. All right. So this will be real brief. The views presented are those of the speaker, me, and do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or its components. That's all I got to say. So appreciate letting me get that in real fast.
That's right. That's the CYA statement right there, brother. I love it. I love it. No, that's great. That's great. I actually had one of my coaching sessions this morning was with another colonel, but he was a JAG 06. So, you got to appreciate the old attorney perspective there. So, okay. So Ricky, can you kind of share, oh, okay. Let's start off with a banger. So the first one, one of the questions that when you and I talked on the phone last week, I asked you, how have you prevented yourself from becoming as a CEO? I mean, essentially you're the CEO of a 1,000-person brigade, 2,000-person brigade, and you affect, essentially thousands of people. as a brigade commander, which is a massive CEO, if you think about it in civilian terms, how have you kept yourself, Ricky, from becoming a toxic leader?
Noble, okay, I appreciate that, and again, thanks for having me on this afternoon. Now, so I think number one, it starts with humility. I think the number one quality of a leader, regardless of rank or position, military or civilian, is you got to be humble. You have to understand that, especially in a brigade combat team or a rifle platoon. Um, there's 4,500 people in this organization, and I do not have all the answers. I don't even know all the questions. But I go into an environment. I go into that environment asking questions. I've done the research. I've done a little bit of study. I've done my homework, but then I'm going in prepared to have a conversation with, Tom Roberts, who's on the net here, who's a 12 Alpha, an engineer. So I'm asking Tom, hey, how does this work? How can we be effective? What do you need for me to help you? I think that is the basis of humility, is the basis of not becoming toxic.
Okay, and I dig that like a shovel. That's fire, Ricky. I love it. How do you do that though? Like, it's easy to brief. Hey, just be humble, right? Kendrick, I think that's Kendrick Lamar, right? Huh? Be man. You all aren't ready, man. All you hardcore Army guys, man. Right? But how do you do that in actuality? How do you be humble? How do you do that?
So again, my technique, number one, you got to be self-aware. And so what I like to do with self-awareness is I'll have conversations with subordinate leaders or my peers, and I talk about areas where I've struggled or where I have failed. So they see that, okay, I am not perfect. I've got flaws. Everyone's got flaws. Here's where I've struggled in life, and here's where I need your help. Um, I think by going in with that type of attitude and that type of mentality, you're setting the team up right away with, okay, this is a humble leader. Here's where I've struggled, and here's where I want you to succeed. Here's how you can succeed by learning from my mistakes that I've done when I was in your position. So I would say self-awareness is critical to being humble, and then also that, to close that loop, it's trust. You're trying to establish trust with that subordinate, with that peer, whatever it may be. But how do you establish that trust? And that's how you do it. Hey, here's the areas where I've struggled. Here's where I need help with. Trust is one of those things where it's hard to earn but easy to lose. Okay, so how do you establish that trust? Self-awareness. Here's where I've struggled. Here's where we're going, and then communication. It's you and Tom Roberts again. I use him because Tom's in the brigade, and I saw his name over here in the chat. I talk about communication, influence, and presence, and I'll unpack that as we go further, Noble. But you've got to be able to effectively communicate with the team. You got to be able to communicate, and you're articulating where I'll go back again to where you've struggled and where you succeeded, and then you're sharing that with your subordinates to get better.
Okay, love it. Fire skinny. So the space I've been in I've been coaching leaders for 20 some years, specifically in the EQ space, emotional intelligence space, the past 4 to 5 years. And again, you're saying some stuff that may be second nature to you, but I've been coaching leaders specifically and exclusively for the past 4 or 5 years. And I will tell you, to just say you got to be self-aware is way easier said than done. Because what I have found, Ricky, is that most leaders are not as self-aware as they think they are. There's an excellent book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. It is fire. In there, there's a global company that asked 10,000 of their executives to rate themselves, rack and stack themselves within the company. There you go. Thanks, Clark. Clark is holding it up there for me. And in that book, leadership and self-deception. And in that study, that case study that company did it with its executives, 90% of the 10,000 executives rated themselves in the top 10%. Right? So it takes self-awareness to do some of these things that you're saying, Ricky. So and I agree 1,000%. What I have found is most leaders are not as self-aware as they think they are. So here's my next question for you. How have you developed, or how does one develop one's self-awareness?
I think number one, it starts with self-study, and you got to read, you got to think, you got to reflect. To think that, and you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. It's self-awareness is, I didn't get this overnight. I've been practicing leadership for almost 24 years now. So it's something that, I'm reading books, I'm studying history, I'm reading biographies, Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin, great book, where she talks about the leadership of four great Americans, President Lincoln, President Theodore Roosevelt, Lyndon B. Johnson, and also Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So studying some book like I said, David H. I'm sorry, that was, if you're talking to me, that was Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin. But, and I'm using that book for an example. You're studying the leadership traits of those four individuals and the attributes, and you're seeing, okay, this is where they struggled. And then for me, I'm that guy. I'm a closet nerd, and I'm taking notes in the columns of the pages of the books and whatnot. And then I'm going back and I'm thinking about it. I'm reflecting. Okay, how am I doing this? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? And then I'll get that circle of people who we all have. Okay, that circle of people who can give us honest feedback and tell us, okay, here's some areas where, you're struggling or you're doing well. Now, it can't be everybody, because you're going to have people out there going to tell you all kind of stuff that's all over the place. But you got to have that circle of people that you really can depend on. It can give you that feedback. Now, what I like to do as well, counseling sessions. So when my counseling sessions with my subordinates, I will ask them. I will. Hey, what are some of your strengths? What are some of your vulnerabilities? And then I'll ask them, what do I need to work on? So and again, this is going back to self-awareness and humility. I know that I have not done everything right in this position. What do I need to work on so therefore I can continue to grow? So we start that counseling session off with like, hey, this is a two-way conversation. This is not just me telling you everything that you've done, good or bad for the last, quarter, we'll say. But give me some feedback so therefore I can continue to grow as well. So that's some of the techniques, reading, reflection, that circle of trust. And then also, you're getting that feedback from subordinates when you're doing your counseling sessions.
Okay. Fire. Ricky, I'm digging this like a backhoe, brother. You are killing it. You are killing it. So, okay. So I got some more questions for you. So, okay. Oh man, this is great. This is great, Ricky. You are dropping it like it's hot. That's old school, man. That's old school. You young kids, man. Okay. So here's another one that I think does not happen by happenstance. The circle of feedback, right? The infamous, the John Boyd, it's another great book. If someone has time to read it, the autobiography of John Boyd, the guy the fighter pilot, F-16 fighter pilot who came up with the OODA loop, right? He's the inventor. He's the guy who created the OODA loop and that whole feedback mechanism. Well, here's what I found. Most people, most leaders, in fact, I read an article, a study, I think by the Army for lessons learned, or Center for Army Lessons Learned, that they did a study on when folks become GOs, right, as happens in the Army, they pull up their crews with them, right? They bring their teams with them for their staffs and stuff like that, which is fine, right? That I don't think inherently there's nothing wrong with that. But what played out is those GOs would pull up a whole circle of yes men and yes women that created a silo of ideas that ultimately was a detriment to the quality of decision making within that organization. So that was the second or third order effect of bringing your homies with you. So here's my question, Ricky. Do you have an intentional system where you collect people that have the stones, the intestinal fortitude to give an '06 full bird colonel, brigade commander, honest feedback? Because it's easy for the '06 to say, hey, how am I doing? You're doing great, sir. You're amazing. You're the greatest leader we've ever had. But in the side, they're like, dude, this guy sucks at these three things. And I just don't have the courage to tell him. All right, how do you develop a tribe, a circle that will give you honest feedback?
Okay, so Noble, first off, the analogy used up front, the example. There's also, I read a lot. I study history. If you go back and you study General MacArthur in World War II, that's what he had. What you just laid out is exactly what he had over in the Pacific Theater of Operations. Same thing he brought with him to Korea, hence why he was removed from command in Korea. So I always encourage people to study history because it's great to just look at those leaders and the things that they've done well and the things they've done poorly. You learn a whole heck of a lot from what people have done poorly as well. Now to your question, how do we teach people? How do I teach people to have intestinal fortitude to tell me the truth? Initial counseling. I'll say, hey, look, our relationship is built on trust, and this goes back to the humility piece. And I will say it up front. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I need you to be honest with me. I'm going to be honest with you, and I demand that. Here's where I'm going to use my rank. I demand that you tell me, hey, where are we struggling? Because if I'm not doing something right, it's to the detriment of the entire organization. So to have that honest feedback, to get that honest and that detailed feedback from subordinates, it's for the good of the organization. So we can all get better. So if you're telling me that everything is, if it's sunny outside, it's blue skies, that's not doing us any good. Where are we failing? Where are we struggling? Because we're all trying to get to the end. We're all trying to win the game. So we're all trying to get better. So how do we go together by doing that? So it goes back, and I'm going to say this couple of the same things repeatedly because I think they're really important. Communication. I call it CIP. All right, communication, influence, and presence. And I'll like I said, I'll unpack that here as we go. But the courage to communicate. Profiles in Courage, written by John F. Kennedy in about circa 1957-ish. Okay, Profiles in Courage. Have the courage to go. Courage is the Calling by oh goodness, I can't think of his name. He writes the series, the Stoic series. Anyway, it'll come to me here in a minute. But anyway, you're over communicating with your boss. You're saying, hey, here's where I'm seeing, I see a potential problem. Here's where risk if we don't execute, or risk if we do execute. Okay, so it's that over communication, that constant dialogue with the higher headquarters. If the boss doesn't want it or you can't have it at that point, identify the time when you talk to him or her to give them that information. So therefore, we can go forward. Having a group of yes people around or people who all think the same way, it's got, yeah, thank you, Ryan Holiday, Iki, I apologize. But yeah, having a group of people around who are going to just say yes to everything you say and do, that's not what I want. When I bring people onto the team, one of the first comments I have with them, do not tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me how we're going to get better as a team. Tell me how we're going to grow. Tell me how we're going to win. Okay. So, I'm a sports guy. Okay. So here, sitting in my office right here, just randomly, I got my basketball. I heard a couple people from Chicago. So I'm a Chicago guy. So we're winners. We got the Bears, we got the Bulls, we got the White Sox, all winners, right, Noble? So, it's a team sport. It's a team sport. So you've got to have the courage to go up to Michael Jordan, if you're Steve Kerr as a role player, and have that conversation with him and say, hey, look, I need you to give me the ball in the corner so therefore I can make this shot and we can win. Jordan's going to get confident in him. He's going to kick it out to him. He's going to shoot and score, and they're going to win the game. Okay. So it's that courage to have that hard conversation, and it's not easy. I struggled. I struggled as a lieutenant. I remember vividly being here in this division, and I didn't do it. I had a platoon sergeant that everybody loved. Everybody loved this guy. He didn't do anything. He smoked cigarettes and he talked a good game, but I didn't have the courage to go up to that platoon sergeant and say, hey, this is where I need help at. This is where we need help to succeed in this platoon. Yeah, we ended up being successful, but it was about half the platoon doing the work. So I went back and reflected on before I went to company command. This is about 20 years ago. I reflected on, like, man, it could have been a whole heck of a lot easier if I'd have gone and had a conversation with that man and told him where he was failing. And so I share that story because there's some cadets on here. Have that hard conversation. You're not going to go up to anybody and knife hand someone. That's not going to work. But you're having that honest conversation. You're like, hey, look, this is where I'm struggling. This is where we're struggling. I need your help. You've been in the Army for 10 whatever plus years. Please give me some help here. How do we become successful? Last story, and I'll stop, Noble. I apologize. I'm rambling. As a battalion commander, I've been in the seat. I commanded 1st Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment from 17 to 19 in 1st Brigade, 82nd. I was driving my battalion commander, Sergeant Major, and I were driving down to Camp Lejeune for some gunnery training for our weapons company. And I asked him, I said, Sergeant Major, I've been here for about three months or so. Where am I failing? And he almost like wrecked the truck. He's like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, Sergeant Major, I'm serious. Like, what do I need to do? What do I need? Where do I need to improve upon? And he's like, oh, sir, wow, you caught me off guard on this. And I'm like, yeah, but please tell me. He's like, okay, well, you can maybe do this a little bit better. You can maybe do that a little bit better. Keep doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, cool. But that started that conversation early on in our tenure. He's a friend to this day. He's a friend of mine to this day. But that conversation set the foundation for that trust, that communication, that dialogue. So I think that's important. Long-winded answer. I apologize, but I'll pause there.
No, it's excellent, Ricky. That's excellent. So I love it, but I guess here's a challenge that I've Ricky. There's a lot of leaders who don't have the. Let's see. Well, let me ask you. I want to ask you, why don't more leaders ask their peers, subordinates, superiors, where am I failing? How can I do better? Because I agree 1,000% with you, bro. 1,000%. Most leaders I have found do not have something in order to ask to have the courage to ask that question without, okay, because this is the response that the majority of leaders do, and all the leaders I coach and stuff. The first response, well, Ricky, whoa, Ricky, well, the reason it's defensiveness and blaming is what most leaders respond with, right? After I ask you, hey, how can I do better? And you tell me, but Ricky, you know what I'm saying? So what do leaders need to have in order to have the courage to ask that question? Where am I failing? What can I do better?
Yeah, Clark Simpson put in here pride. I couldn't agree more with Clark Simpson's comment there. Hubris, the arrogance. There's a fine line between self-confidence and arrogance, and we all walk it very closely. So, those leaders, for again, my perspective, okay, I don't have all the answers. I don't know. It's okay to fail. Just don't do it again. I'm struggling here. A lot of people just don't have that because they're like, hey, look, I have to have all the answers. If I don't have all the answers, people won't think I'm in charge. That's not the case. If you're the best player on the team, you don't have to go around telling everybody you're the best player on the team. Everyone will know. So I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I'm not the best. I've struggled, but you got to be coachable. You got to be humble. You got to be hungry. And by doing those things, that's the kind of person I want on my team. right? I don't want that guy or that gal. It's like, oh, I got it all. I know it. Okay, so if you tell me you got it all, if you know it all, you're done learning, you're done growing, and I don't want that kind of person on my team. I don't. That's not the kind of leader that I want. And that's not the kind of person I want leading my subordinates, because that person's more, he or she is more out for themselves than those individuals. We use our rank for good. We use our rank for good. How can I help? How can I use this rank to help you solve your problem? Whether it's in a tactical environment, combat, or if it's just going down to the soldier support center, making sure somebody's getting paid properly, right? How are we using our rank for good? So swallow your pride, be humble, and okay, I don't know how to do this. Let me make sure you're straight. Let me make sure you're squared away. I think that's important.
Love it. Love it. So there's another great book called Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Many of y'all have probably already read it. Excellent book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And in the back of his book, he talks about the ideal team player. What does the ideal team player look like? And again, research and study and all this stuff, all the big brains that do this stuff. And he came up with 3 things that make an ideal team player based on interviewing and stuff and performance and all this stuff. Hungry, humble, and smart were the 3 qualities that he found based on his research that make the ideal team player. I added a 4th one. The 4th one that I added for when I'm developing teams and leaders and stuff is appreciative. Hungry, humble, smart, and appreciative. Because to your point, Ricky, what I have found is the more appreciative somebody is, it's hard to be cocky and arrogant the more grateful and appreciative you are. And here's the thing is, you can practice, there's actual tools that you can practice being grateful and appreciative and also humble. And Ricky's said, he said one, and I'm gonna bring it out as an actual tool because it's an actual tool, and I'll tell you the other one too. So the grateful tool is, and they've done again more research stuff. If you practice 2 minutes of gratefulness, of gratitude a day, 3 days a week, it's the equivalent of an actual pharmaceutical drug that makes you feel happy. It's got that level of power. So it's not just like, oh, hey, we're going to be grateful to be warm, fuzzy, and bathe in essential oils and stuff. It's got a real ROI in a person's mental health and emotional health, and therefore performance on the job, by practicing gratitude. And so one of the things when I'm running meetings and stuff, I created a whole little system for it. But one of the things I start meetings with is everyone go around the room and tell me something you're grateful for. In fact, let's do it right now. Everyone write in the chat log right now, what is one thing you're grateful for? And if you're really high speed, put 2 or 3 things in the chat log that you're grateful for. 2 or 3 things you're grateful for. And literally, it will change your brain chemistry when you stay in that state of gratitude for a couple minutes. So that's a whole nother exercise, EQ exercise that I'm a huge fan of. Okay, so the other one, okay, this is fire. This is fire, y'all. The other one is humility. Now, this exercise, Ricky mentioned it, but I like to use it as an actual tool. So this is something I would challenge you all. A way to practice both hungry and humble is this. Challenge yourself as a leader. Write down 2 or 3 people a day and ask them each 1 or 2 questions each. So I want you to practice asking questions to leaders. Practice asking questions. That's another art. And again, Ricky, he's been practicing stuff like it's a lot of this stuff is second nature for him. There's a lot of leaders it's not second nature for. A lot of leaders are terrible at asking questions. And I think there's an art to asking questions. So those are two exercises, the gratitude exercise and the hungry and humble exercise, by being intentional at asking 2 or 3 people a day, 1 to 2 questions each day, because there's so much value in questions. Okay, next question, Ricky. Well, any comments on that, Ricky? That anything of I said that you want to make a comment on?
I do. So the questions, you said leaders, and I'll take it a step further and I say it's also subordinates. You got to get to know your subordinates. And in a platoon, in a company, in a battalion, you should know. In a platoon, you should know a lot of things about those people, about your paratrooper, excuse me, your soldiers. Um, yeah, forgive a paratrooper slip ups here and there. I set a goal as a battalion commander. I set a goal as a battalion commander to know one thing about every single person in the battalion. Now I cheated because I was in Kandahar, so we were all together. But I accomplished that goal. Once we came back home, people PCS, and then I lost track of it. But you got to get to know your people. That's how you establish trust. I call it engaged leadership. This goes back to the CIP I mentioned earlier. The P is presence. I tie that to engaged leadership. You never walk by a paratrooper. You always speak to somebody. You go over to the chow hall and you're like, "Hey, good morning. How are you? Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Chicago." "Oh, really? Me too. Wow, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school?" Okay. And then you take it a step further. "Hey, are you married?" "I am. My wife's name is Nellie." "Oh, great." And next time you see this paratrooper, you say, "Okay, hey, how's Nellie doing?" And that person will look at you, their eyes will pop out of their head, and they're like, "Wow, this guy actually really cares about me." And you commit that person to memory, and you built trust right there. Just that little thing right there. You built a team. Um, and speaking of team, last thing, Noble, I'll pause. I call it team. I call it team. Trust, empathy, always discipline, and mental toughness. Trust, empathy, always discipline, mental toughness. Those are the things that I brought with me, and we push to the team, no pun intended there, to the greater team here, that we emphasize every day. We build in trust. You're empathetic. All right. You're always disciplined in everything you say and do, and then you're mentally tough. I'll pause there, Noble.
Excellent, excellent. Love it, love it. That's great. That's great, Skinny. And something that I did when I was a PL, brand new PL, fresh out of Ranger school. I was a Winter Ranger, so got graduated in March and showed up to my unit in April with the guy. Some of you all old school folks may know a guy named Dan Allen, who was a retired 4-star. In fact, you got his son, which is really cool. Um, and when I showed up to my unit, I didn't have a clue what was going on. So when I showed up to my unit, now this is this is when the dinosaurs were roaming and we had chalk and stuff like that. And there were no high-speed cell phones and stuff. And I would take my little Rolodex 2x5 card and I would go and sit in each soldier's room on their bunk and say, "Okay, man, tell me about yourself." And they're like, and some of the NCOs like, "Hey, sir, you're kind of getting," I said, "Look, you may lead through rank and stuff like that. I just can't do that. I got to know who I'm working with in order to lead. Just me, my particular leadership style." And so I developed this little Rolodex of all the birthdays, anniversaries, names, hobbies, and stuff of each one of my soldiers. And I did that for the first 3 weeks, and then went to a field problem. And I said, "Hey guys, I just got the operations order. And sorry for my civilians. I got the instructions from my company commander, my boss, and then I went to my platoon sergeants and stuff. I said, "Hey guys, here is here's the plan that we got from the CO. I've got some ideas, but I've been a platoon leader for about 5 minutes, right? For about 3 weeks. I have some ideas, but I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are, right?" And they said, "Hey, sir," this is what they said. Man, I got emotional when they told me. They said, "Hey, sir, we are not going to let you fail." And I'm like, why would you say that? Like they said, "You've been here for 3 weeks. You have showed us, not told us, you've showed us that you actually care about everybody, from the new E1, E2 to the platoon sergeant. You've shown us you care about us. We are not going to let you fail this mission." And I was like, "Well, I'm willing to fail," right? Because that's how I'm going to learn. But thank you. So anyway, that was my experience too. And the other thing too about vulnerability, that's another one too. A great trait to chew on for everybody is vulnerability, which is the other thing that Ricky has said. He just hasn't packaged it in vulnerability, but he has been vulnerable from the jump. The other thing I told my unit day one, got the platoon together, and I said, hey guys, I know you guys are going to smoke me, right? I know that's the goal, right? You got to smoke the PL and stuff. I said, let me help you out. I'm going to save us all time here. Because, I was trained, never let your soldiers see you sweat, which I think is a crack, by the way. And I said, look, you can see me. I'm 6'1". At the time, I was probably 220, 230. I'm bigger than the average bear, right? I'm bigger than the average paratrooper, which means my F equals MA, force equals mass times acceleration. My M, I've got a very big M, right? My mass is very large. So I'm telling you, you're all going to smoke me on a run. I don't do this guy with all my real estate and wind resistance right here does not do 5-minute miles. I'm just telling you right now, I can rock at blazing speed, maybe a 7-minute mile. I said, so you're going to smoke me on a run. However, we go rucking. Give me, I'll take it all. You give me the ammo, you give me the base plate, you give me whatever you need. I can ruck all day. And when they saw my vulnerability and like, oh, okay, he's being real. This is what he's good at. This is what he's not good at. There was none of this because the other thing too, Ricky, that you had said, as parents, how many guys are parents? Anybody parents out there? You can't fool your kids, y'all, right? We think as parents, oh yeah, my kids don't know my weaknesses. Dude, they can write an autobiography on all your weaknesses, right? So who are we fooling as parents? Same thing with our soldiers or our company, our teams that we're leading. They know our weaknesses. Why try to hide them and act like we're all that in a bag of sun chips when oftentimes they know that we're not. Okay, I got a next question, Ricky. How, if you walk into an organization and you have a pocket where you've got a toxic leader and therefore one of your teams or organizations is not performing at the level that they should, how do you take care of, handle, deal with, work with a toxic organization and hopefully turn them around?
So first off, if there's a toxic leader within a formation, my plan would be to, number one, make sure that individual's aware. So counsel, he's got to know, hey, here are the facts. Here's what's going on. The chances are that toxic individual is going to be defensive. Like, no, I would never do that. This is what I'm doing. So I'm building a team. Like, well, okay, here's what your team is saying. And so let's pull out some facts. Whether it's a DOC survey, whether it's just some comments, statements from his teammates, and we'd have a conversation. And then I would share some stories with him or her. I say, hey, look, this is what I dealt with. This is the time that I was toxic because frankly, as a major, I was not very pleasant. I wasn't very nice to be around, right? And I struggled. I struggled personally and I struggled professionally because I was always just boom, boom. And so your comment about asking people or being grateful, practice grateful 3 days a week, it's a pharmaceutical drug. I think that's a tremendous comment. That's awesome. But I would share that story with that individual and we'd have a conversation. All right. We'd have a conversation about what they're failing and how they're failing their team. Okay. And then I'd give him or her about, let's just say, a week. I give him a little bit more, maybe two weeks or so. And if the situation hadn't changed, then I've got to remove that person from I got to remove that person. I would have to. That's easier said than done. But if it's someone who's more senior, then I'm going to have a conversation with my boss. Hey, sir, here's what I've got going on down here. Here are the steps that I've taken to diffuse this situation, for lack of a better term, but it's still not working. I recommend we move this person out of position and put this person in, so therefore this team can start winning again. And it's that honest conversation with your boss, with your commander. Hey, I can't assume risk at this position anymore. If we keep him or her in position, it's going to be a detriment to the team. We have to move them out immediately. Okay. All right. And so that's kind of the way I would do it. Now, I'm sorry, Noble. Let me back up real fast. You're talking about your PT, your 7 minute mile pace there. I call that shared hardship. Okay, I call it shared hardship. So I'm 45 years old. Okay, I enjoy going out and doing good hard PT, and I do it with my subordinates. I call it shared hardship. We get out, we'll run a 5 mile sprint. This morning we did heavy legs, or it was actually volume legs over. We call it the Thunderdome, and we're working hard together. And then I'm messaging after that PT session. Hey, here's the things that I want to talk about so everybody understands. It goes back to again that communication, and also it goes with the I with influence. How am I developing my leaders? How am I bringing them with me? They see me. I'm one of the oldest people in this brigade combat team, but leading from the front in everything I say and do. That's my obligation. It's my obligation. I have to do it. Simple as that. I'm sorry, no, I'll pause there.
Yeah, love it. That's great. Absolutely. Shared hardship. I love it. Yep, excellent, excellent. And your previous comments also, that's excellent. Um, okay, so here's a question I have. What are you seeing, Ricky? So you 45 years old, obviously one of the senior dudes in every unit that you go into. You're the or one of the senior dudes in the organization. What have you noticed in observations in some of the leadership challenges and strengths based on generations? Right. So what are you seeing from younger leaders, strengths and weaknesses? Maybe some of those, younger guys, some of the mid-range guys, some of the older folks. What are you seeing generational leadership challenges from your foxhole, from your perch?
I'll give you two. I'll start with challenges. So a lot of younger paratroopers, and I'll range it from sergeant to junior staff sergeant, and then from first lieutenant to junior captain. I'll keep it in that population. And if you,
So,
if,
and let me just interpret that for the civilians on here. That's like mid-level, lower to mid-level managers or supervisors is the range that he's talking about there.
that group, that population has a very hard time bringing up issues, or let me rephrase. Excuse me. They have a hard time uh, with someone who's doing something that's incorrect with correcting that person. So to your toxic leadership point, they would have a hard time going to that person and saying, "Hey, you need to, fix yourself X, Y, and Z." Or if they know that someone's doing something completely wrong, they have a hard time going up to that person and saying, "Hey, can you stop? You need to stop doing that because that's outside of said regulation." Now, where they do really well is they've got a lot of things to do. They have a lot of things to do, so they're able to manage quite a bit of tasks at one time. And my responsibility to try to to get rid of some of those tasks so they don't have to do quite so much. But the ones that are really good are managing those tasks, and they're managing them very well. They're also they're fairly emotionally intelligent. I mean, the things that we're talking about, the younger generation is very emotionally intelligent. They understand empathy. A lot of these guys were in high school and college when COVID was going on. Like for me, I was a tank commander. I was like, okay, whatever. But that, they understand that better than what, maybe you and I would. Whereas older generation, to our point when we first started, the senior people are kind of stuck in their ways. Like, I don't need to change. I've been successful for 20 plus years. It's working well for me. But the newer generation sees that no, that's not quite the way. So there's and even I look at the audience when you first came on. There's a ton of cadets on here. So they want to learn, they want to grow. I'm not saying I don't know how many older generation guys and gals are on here, but uh, they want that emotional intelligence. They want to understand it, and they want to relate with their subordinates better. That's what I've seen in a nutshell. Over.
That's great.
There's my army that's coming out again. I apologize.
That's all right, brother. And I'm gonna You nailed it. That's great. That's what I'm observing as well. So here's a generational EQ way to say it. EQ observation about generations. Gen X and up is which, so Gen X, so like 40s, mid 40s maybe and up, or late 40s and up. We lack a lot of self-awareness, and we have what looks like better self-management, but that's actually our ability to compartmentalize. Compartmentalization does not equal good at self-management. That just means that we're good at compartmentalizing. So that's the older generation. Gen Y and Gen Z are definitely more self-aware than Gen X is. Like you said, they grew up hearing all the mental health, emotional health. I grew up hearing emotions are weakness, emotions are bad, emotions are soft. Like, that, like that's a whole, like, don't even say the E word. The E word is a cuss word, right? And but here's where Gen Z and some of the millennials have a tough time is their self-awareness is greater than Gen X, but they lack self-management skills. So they are experiencing more depression, more some addictions and drug abuse and some of those different challenges and stuff because they lack some of those self-management skills and tools. And so the reality is all the generations, regardless of what generation you are, we all have room to grow in our EQ. It just may be different, right? So that the younger folks, that'd be a great way to connect with the younger leaders is if you're a senior leader, hey, can you help me get spun up on this emotional intelligence stuff, right? What is that? Like, help me understand it better. What is this world all about? Because again, as old folk like me, old dude, like this is foreign stuff to me, right? So, and I tell a lot of leaders and a lot of dudes are also not good at this stuff initially, unless they take ownership of this. Is it's a whole new language. It's just like I do jujitsu, right? I'm talking to a 59-year-old at class last week. I'm like, dude, this is a whole new language. Jiu-jitsu is a whole new language. Same thing with the world of emotions and emotional intelligence. And here's the crazy thing is, for the older leaders on here, our emotions, this is going to rub you sideways, directly affect our performance. We may think, oh no, man, I can stuff and avoid my emotions. This is fire quote. This is fire. You're all ready? I'm doing the SAR major stomp right now. The SAR major stomp is this: unaddressed emotions don't get better over time. They actually compound. Unaddressed emotions don't get better over time. They actually compound. Now, that doesn't just go for the senior, older leaders on here. If you see some of your subordinates or spouses or children stuffing and avoiding their emotions, I'm telling you, that's not a good thing. It's a good thing to figure out, to learn this stuff, to grow in this area. Okay. Last question, Ricky, and then I want to do kind of like an AAR, some sustains and stuff that folks got from the conversation. Wrapping up. A last question is this, Ricky. What is your mindset and process for developing leaders?
Mindset and process for developing leaders. So that's the number one leader. That's the number one job of leaders, to develop more leaders. So number one job of leaders, develop more leaders. Additionally, with that, we as leaders have to continue to develop ourselves. So our self-development, self-study. I set a goal, and I failed. I set a goal, and Tom Roberts knows this. He's on the net right now. And I said, because I sent it out to all company back troop commanders, all my leaders. I was like, hey, here, I set a goal to read 30 books this year while in command. I failed. I got to 27. But here's the 27 I got. But you're continuing to read. After I'm coming out of command here on Monday. So I wrote a 2,000-page paper and sent it off to my peers. Hey, here's what I think takes to be successful in this position. To my peers, to guys who are coming into command. But so my mindset on developing leaders, that's our legacy. That is our legacy. So when, mid manager, captain, lieutenant, you name it, is now a battalion commander, I'm successful. That person's reading, that person's writing, that person's he or she is developing subordinate leaders, and he's bringing them with them. We have to do that. It's our obligation as leaders is to continue to build more leaders throughout our formation or throughout our profession.
Excellent. And do you have a process to do that? What is your process to do that?
So my process, it's complicated because it's a big formation. There's a lot of people here, 4,500 people. And so I'll take a population. I wrote out my leader development plan. Here's the things that I want to focus on, for, 3 months, we'll just say. And then I can't talk to everybody at once, but I'll grab my leaders at certain times, and whether it's after PT, whether it's going to breakfast together, whether we have a quick engagement over in their headquarters, but I'm hitting these specific talking points. Now, on certain occasions, I do bring everybody together, and I say, hey, here's what I want you all to focus on. Here's how we're going to get to the next level. And it's hard, but we force ourselves to make time for it to develop those leaders. That process is imperative, and it does it, and it goes at echelon. So it's difficult for the commanding general. He's got 20,000 some odd people. It's difficult for me, and then it gets a little bit easier. But it's still important to think about that concept and how it's going to work, what that mindset's going to be, and how you're gonna push your leadership philosophy. I just wrote about a month ago. I pulled out some old products and I updated my leadership philosophy. And I got 10 points. And the first one, my number one point, my number one quality of a leader is humility. I think that's the number one quality of a leader is humility. And then I'm going to jump down to my fifth point is people. How are we training and developing subordinate leaders? The Army, and the Army's a people business. The Air Force has planes, and the Navy has ships. We have a lot of people. So how do we train them? How do we take care of them and their families? So that's important. I'll pause there, Noble.
Amazing, Ricky. Ah, man, dude, this is incredible. Okay, so, dude, this has been so good. Okay, so real quick, this is one's going to be kind of a rapid fire. What are the top books that you might recommend leaders read? You mentioned a couple, and I wrote those in the chat log. Are there any other books that you feel have made a big impact on your growth and development that you could share with us?
I've got a log, and there we go. But so again, I keep track of my books, and I like doing it. So I've actually got it right here in my notebook. So I'm just gonna open it up, and I've highlighted the ones that were my favorites. And I just opened the 2019, the books I read. So I'm just gonna highlight some of my best ones from 2019. Okay. The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. Tremendous book about the Great Migration in America. The Warmth of Other Suns. That's a phenomenal book. The Bully Pulpit by Doris Kearns Goodwin. That's about Theodore Roosevelt. Another great book. Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. One of my favorite authors. American Lion, which is about President Andrew Jackson, written by John Meacham. Let me see. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. Another good one. Again, I'm not. No. Again, I'm a sports guy, so one of my favorites. Where'd it go? I just lost it. Shoot. Above Winning Every Day by Lou Holtz. One of my favorites. Turn the Ship Around by L. David Marquette. Another really good one. And I'll give you one more and I'll stop. Looking at my cheat sheet here. Okay. There's another good one. There's a ton here. And Legacy by James Kerr. Legacy by James Kirk, which is about the All Blacks, which is a rugby team, but unbelievable story about leadership and servant leadership at that. I'll pause there. And no, I'll be glad to send you and Eric Lopez. What we've done is I write my PO helps me out. You met her, AJ. My reading list, and we send it out. We sent it out about every 3 months or so. Books that I read and I recommended to the force. I'll be glad to share that with you at the end of this.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. Okay, so if you guys could in the chat log, on a scale from 1 to 10, put in the chat log for me, how helpful or valuable was this Lunch and Learn by Colonel Ricky Taylor? Scale 1 to 10. 10, it was the bee's knees. 1, it was lower than a pregnant ant. What would you say? Scale 1 to 10. What would you put this Lunch and Learn? Okay, lots great feedback, y'all. Lots of 10s. So Ricky, again, dude, cannot thank you for doing this. We're gonna make this recording available also. So, and we'll send it out to the email list so you guys can send it out and share it, because I think there's not a leader that would listen to this that would not get incredible value. So so thank you. And then also, if you guys could put in the chat log one takeaway that you got from Ricky's from the workshop, from the Lunch and Learn today. One insight, one takeaway, one quote, something that resonated that he shared. Please put that in the chat log as well, so we can kind of capture some of those lessons learned that you guys had. That would be also very helpful. While they're doing that, Ricky, while they're putting in their takeaways, could you give one final parting thought, insight, encouragement, whatever, for all the leaders on here? What would you share?
I'll finish with this. Over communicate with your people, whether it's your boss, whether it's your peers, your subordinates. Over communication. So communication, influence. How are you building leaders? How are you building the next generation? Really put some thought behind it. What kind of leader do you want to be? Presence, engaged leadership. You never walk by a paratrooper. You're always talking to people. It's our responsibility, it's our obligation. So CIP. So if you write out CIP on your paper or your computer there, and the way I envision it, it's got a circle around it. On the top part of that circle is humility. We talked about that quite a bit up front. You're self-aware. How are you being humble? Think about the times that you failed and put yourself in the shoes or the boots of that person who's in that position, that lieutenant or that cadet. I remember when I was a cadet, I struggled. I was a lieutenant, I struggled. So put yourself in those boots and help that individual get better. And the bottom half of that circle is trust. How are you building trust throughout your team? It's easy. It's hard to earn, easy to lose. So I appreciate you having me on and let me talk to everyone. This has been it's been great, and I appreciate you and the team for listening to me.
Absolutely, Ricky, and you can look in the chat log here. Some of the takeaways here. Okay, you're digging it like a backhoe. That was a takeaway. That's great, Thomas. Let's see. Maintain humility, ask for feedback, be willing to give effective feedback. It all starts with humility, open dialogue with subordinates to build trust in your organization. Awesome. Yep. Sir, seeing how you approach leadership and developing leaders has been excellent, very insightful. You're doing great. You're on the right track. That's great. Jason, that's great to hear that. Shared hardship with others. Presentation reminder, continue to stay engaged in these types of subjects. Yes. Asking for honest feedback. Ask questions of people every day to gain awareness. Then be humble with that info. Ask questions. Showing vulnerability to subordinates does not equate to weakness. It's a or lack of knowledge. That's right. I took away the reminder again that the leadership begins where the personal decision is not assigned or given. It's not a title or rank, why it's so valuable to practice leaders in the moment. Great reading list. Excellent. Excellent, y'all. Thank you so much, Ricky. Dude, totally appreciate you, brother. Excited to hear what God's got for you next in your journey. Thank you all for showing up. We'll be doing another Arrowhead Leadership Lunch and Learn next month. We'll put out the date and stuff. Ricky, again, can't thank you enough, brother. Thank you for your time.